take 2 of week 16 attendance video because I did the first one and I realized I forgot a couple of key pieces of information that I am going to cover this time. First, I want to talk about the schedule. So this week is Thanksgiving week, right? So normally we have Thursday night items, so I have pushed those to Monday, but not night, Monday morning. So if you want a little more time with finishing the water consumption and household purchases, which we start in the code along, then you'll have until Monday morning to also do that and the final step on the decision app. Okay. So I've changed the schedule there. By the way, if you've ever used it, I think the schedule itself, if you go to calendar and choose just the course, will give you a good look at that. And then you can see that those are 8. But also 8 a.m., but also these items, those other code alongs, are due at their normal time. Okay, so just to be clear about that. And then for week 17, because I'm going to release both week 16 and week 17 in this go, the video that you're going to watch from week 17 is actually from last year. But I have provided the current end of semester dates. And so as a reminder, I did those in week 14, but I'm just providing them again here just so everybody's clear. And by the way, if you are taking my SQL course, they are a little different. So make sure that you're seeing both of those if you are taking that other course. And the other thing is, and I haven't talked about this for this class, is at the end of the semester, because the turnaround time for the next semester is so quick, that I will be removing repos. But most of you have, actually, I think majority of you have used local dev environments, so that's pretty simple. It'll still stay there. For those of you using CodeSpace, you'll want to think about that. If you need any help with that or have any questions, let me know. You can just actually download a zip file and it will bring everything down. Okay, so now let's look at week 16 attendance now that I've gone over the schedule. One of the things that I do this week in the code alongs is I implement the ternary operator. And the ternary operator is kind of fun in the sense that it's very short. It's basically doing an if-else in a very concise one-line expression, right? So in this case, it's asking, we're passing get free, the function boolean. So now we're declaring that is member. And so it says is member. If is member is true, then we're going to return. Now you don't have to use a return value for a ternary. It's just in this function, the way they're showing it to you is the way it would do. You wouldn't have to. If that was not true, if that was false, then it would return 10. Okay. So just understand, and it's actually kind of an interesting thing to implement a ternary operator in this sense. I heard one of the computer science instructors talk about ternary operators one time, and what they said was that yes, it's short and concise, but for somebody reading your code that doesn't have an extensive code base or a code experience, that code will not make sense to them. And oftentimes what you want is you want your code to be readable. Okay? So, but I still think it's good to implement it because it's good experience to have that as well. Okay, so one of the things I want to talk about is not ternary operators now, is iterative nature. So don't confuse the two. So the ternary operator versus the iterative nature of gaining a skill. Because one of the things this week I did is I am thinking about next semester, spring 2025, and what I want to do with this course in spring 2025. So what I did is I did a little exercise where I went out to ChatGPT and I gave it all the code that is going to be written for this course, okay, for the carbon footprint. And what I said was, I'm preparing, here's the code base I've used to teach my students in an online community college course how to code in JavaScript. Give me feedback and make suggestions for how I would, change this course to use best practices, implement good learning strategies, So ChatGPT, its first go around was like your project is well structured, modular, adheres to good coding practices. But there are ways to improve it. So that is the nature of coding is like you code something and depending on how much time and how much experience you've had between the time you coded that original whatever it was, right? And now if you've had time and you've had experience, you will often look at code. This has happened to me more than times than I can even care to admit. When I've looked at code I've written in the past. Matter of fact, that happened this week with the water consumption, I think. The way I had implemented that because there was a condition if you had a washer dryer. I remember last semester I had some students who came up with a better solution to handling that than I did. And this is truly the nature of iterative learning is that you build something, you look at it, you learn something more, you have a little perspective of time, maybe and sleep and good food and sunshine, and you see it a little differently. And so, what I want to say to you is that this is the nature of learning a skill like this. And really, almost with any skill, but specifically with AI. And then in this case, I'm sorry, with not learn, I was actually moving to my next topic, which was the impacts of AI in this process. Because one of the things I decided to do here was I looked at all the feedback that it gave me. It was really good from a high level perspective. I'm definitely things I will think about changing. Like one of the things I will look at is the way I render the table. The reason I render the table content, the tabular data the way I do, was to help students understand the concepts or how to code a row and a cell. Because yes, there are more contemporary ways to insert rows and insert cells, but sometimes I feel like the structure of the table gets lost. But next time I do this, which will be spring 2025, I will most likely change that because that is the iterative nature of a skill. So the other thing that happened, and this is kind of my, you know, beware, is that I also, just as an exercise, decided to say, hey, chat, go ahead and implement all your suggestions into the code base I gave you, which was all the files for the carbon footprint, the HTML, the main, all the modules. And I said, modify that base, update that base on all your suggestions. And then I took that code base and I looked at it locally and it didn't work. So I spent about 30 minutes trying to get it to work. And then it dawned on me a meme that is fairly common around the coding community, which is that you may spend more time trying to fix code that chat gave you versus coding it yourself. And coding it yourself, of course, gives you more of that skill base, that iterative skill base. But it is just so natural, I think, and depending on your life, like to rely on that to give you code. But then when you go to implement it, if you don't have a grasp of the code, it can be really challenging. And that's why in a course like this, I really am, and every semester I'm actually reminded how important the technical interviews are, because it is really one of the only ways I know how to see how well students have translated the skills. And one of the things I'm doing different next semester, now that I'm actually talking here about next semester, is I'm actually going to move the technical interview up in the semester because, as many of you said in your wonderful feedback last week, that it was like we had coded so much beyond the basics that the basics were kind of like gone in a sense of having a context for them. Which, by the way, coding really should reinforce the fundamentals, but sometimes it doesn't because you're just looking at patterns and you're matching the patterns of what the code is versus understanding what the code does. So my next semester, students will have their code reviews available earlier in this semester. And I'm going to do a better job in the attendance to actually talk about those fundamental skills every attendance post. So this is the iterative nature of what I do, which is I look at how students do. And as a matter of fact, one of the things, because today I actually went and spent some time looking at the last attendance post, because in the last attendance post, again, which I'm going to go ahead and release, you will see me talk about the statistics for students who are currently passing this class. So today I did this same exercise with both because there's two sections this semester. And the same statistics are holding. Between 70 and 75% of the students currently enrolled in the class are passing this class. And that statistic is higher than I've had in the past, but is not as I would like to have it increase even more. That's, this is the goal with anything, is to get better at something, figuring out new ways to deliver content. Because if we're not, and this is the whole topic of what I wanted to bring to you today, if we're not iterating over, if we're not constantly trying to say, how can I get better, right? That process really benefits us all. And bypassing that process to go right to having something do it for you may not be helpful. But it's also like, how do we adjust to the changing world of AI? And this is something I spend a bit of time thinking about and studying about and listening to people who I trust about these things, about coding and where that's going. And nobody knows what the future holds. I've had student after student ask me, should I even learn to code? My answer to that is it's going to help you be a more focused, right, critical thinker, so that no matter where you go in your career, if it's a technical career, and even if it's not, most of you are in technical careers here, I believe it will help you in your structured critical thinking skills and in your focus skills. But I get the nature of the world that we live in. I understand that. Okay. So I talked about the ternary, going back to the ternary operator now, and how I implemented it in here, and then you'll have the final step. And again, I've talked about the schedule here, and then the solution. And then for week 17, I've updated I've provided that end of semester list. And I've already talked about, if you're taking 82, it might be a little different, so make sure you're checking that out. And I am going to, I'm not going to update any content. I'm not going to re-record this, because this video from last year does really say everything I wanted to say, but I'm going to repeat something it says, which is thank you. I very much appreciate every student in here. And if you ever had a moment where you didn't feel I appreciated you, I'm sorry. It was never my intent. Like everyone, sometimes my list got high and I was just trying to get through it, and it was never my intent to come off short, but just to give you targeted feedback. But if I ever came off short, I do apologize. It was not my intention to do that. So, but I appreciate the time and attention you've taken going through this course. I know it's not an easy course. I heard all your feedback last week. Okay, so in the reply here, what I want to ask you is, do you understand the iterative nature of gaining a skill? Have you experienced that in your own lives or in this course? Or what do you think about that in terms of where we're at with generative AI? Like, how do we help, right? How do we as an institution lean into the benefits, but also try to offset the downsides of this, right? The iterative nature. And I didn't even talk about iterative nature in AI, but that's really part of what led into this discussion. So anyway, thanks so much. I'm going to go ahead and release the rest of this, and if you have any questions, please continue reaching out. I've have really wonderful conversations with you all. Now is the time to make sure you're clear about the end of the semester. So just to give you that look-see, actually you can go back to week 14. Week 14 content is where I showed the end of semester, and that content, as far as that goes, in here, right, has not changed. It's still those dates. So, but I would really prefer to hear from you related to the iterative nature of what I talked about today. And have a great winter break. Ask me any questions also about that repo. Know that they are going to be going away right after this semester ends. Okay, talk to you later.